suppose growing up as a left-handed person, I didn't really notice it too much or thought of myself as any different from anyone else. I suppose the most obvious thing would be, of course, why is my hand have more pencil and smudge marks than anyone else's? Which, of course, there is something to be said that writing in general is more difficult for left-handed people. I suppose it really wasn't until going to music college that I started to notice some sort of being treated a little bit differently or being thought of as differently. Being a guitar player like myself and then being surrounded by all these other musicians, I seem to remember at one point I was the only left-handed person in the college, and it was quite common, to receive comments like cack-handed or lefty or it looks weird to my eye, you're playing backwards. And I did realize that perhaps, maybe there is something to be said about the way left-handed people are viewed in the world. And then as I started to develop in my teenage years and into early adulthood, I started getting interested in another topic, which is theology. That involves studying the Bible. And I was quite interested to discover something of great negativity towards maybe not so much left-handed people, but the left side in general. There are a couple of stories or references in the Bible, in the Psalms, for example, of the power of the Lord's right hand. And it was believed by many theologians and historians that the right hand eventually started to represent some kind of strength and power. They would reference the right hand whenever we talk about God destroying the enemies of the world so he could protect his people. And although it doesn't mention the left hand in general, as we progress through the Bible, we do start to see some negative verses. For example, in Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 2, it talks about the wise person inclines to the right, but the foolish person leans towards the left. For many people, even if you are a Christian or if you are a believer, if you consider this a holy book, and we see this negative connotation, how do we wrestle with these things? How do we engage with these things? It would probably be my guess that the vast majority, or probably all of the biblical writers, were right-handed, which is very ironic because they wrote in Hebrew. And when you look at Hebrew, they actually write reverse to what we do in English. We write from left to right, but they write from right to left. So the Hebrew language very much benefits a left-handed person, and yet at the same time there is this great negativity. No one knows if Jesus was left-handed. Some have suggested he would have been forced to change, like so many school children just a few decades ago were either encouraged or forced to change to the right hand if they were left-handed. But Jesus doesn't seem to address it. In fact, one could almost say he sort of intensifies the situation, because there is one story where he talks about on his return on the day of judgment, he's going to separate the good people from the bad people. He describes them as sheep and goats, and the sheep are those who are saved, who are going to be on the right, and the goats are those who are condemned, who are going to be on the left. And we could ask a very serious question there. Is he saying that hell is on the left and heaven is on the right? How do we understand the metaphors and the descriptions that are given in the Bible? Well, this has interested me so much that I've started writing a dissertation on it. And some of the conclusions I've come to is, I don't think it necessarily has to be seen as a prejudice. It probably was more of a social, practical way to live, to use the right hand. But there are other stories in the Bible that talks about left-handed people who defeated the enemies of God. There was one soldier called Ehud in the book of Judges that describes him as left-handed, and so there's an example there of God using a left-handed person to get the job done. There's another story in the book of Judges of 700 men from the tribe of Benjamin who were all left-handed, and they defeated the Philistines, I think it was. I think there is room for exploring our language and changing our metaphors to describe the left hand of God as perhaps a peaceful thing, not as an instrument of war like the right hand is so often described. There's so many wonderful things about being left-handed, I think. We do tap into our creative side a lot. Not saying that right-handed people can't be creative, because of course they are, but I can see for myself I'm quite a creative person, video making and filmmaking, and I like being a little bit different, if I'm honest. I like when people see me play guitar that it's left-handed. So I think we should be inclusive. We should have an equality for everyone. And these are perhaps some important things to think about.